Good evening, everyone. I'm still Ron Breen, and I'm still the mayor of Yachats, and I'm still the League of Oregon Cities president. But I get to introduce myself at every one of these kind of the things that we're doing, so I'm still him. I want to thank you for being here tonight. This is our award dinner for the 2014 conference. It's an opportunity to recognize exceptional leadership in the cities. Tonight, we're going to recognize outstanding city and public leadership as we present the Civic Education Award, the Herman Carley Award, and the James C. Richards Award. Before we begin the awards, though, as is typical before we do any one of these sessions, I want to recognize, I'm getting out of order here. Yeah, I'll do that later. Before we begin the awards, though, let me do this. Let me recognize some important people who are here with us. First of all, I want to thank Eugene for being our great host. Mayor Kitty Piercy is here with us, as is Councilor Betty Taylor and Greg Evans. So thank you very much, and please pass our thanks on to your staff and the rest of your team who have put this together. And now it's my pleasure to introduce to you some distinguished guests, the dedicated city officials who provide the leadership for the League of Oregon Cities. My fellow members of the LOC Board of Directors who are with us tonight. Will you please stand to be recognized as I call your name? Mayor Pete Truex from Forest Grove, Brad Nanke, City Councilor from Salem, George Endicott, Mayor of Redmond. Those are the guys that have been on the executive board. Now a few more before you give applause. That's Mayor Bob Andrews from Newburgh, Jonathan Bilden, Councilor from Eagle Point, Denny Doyle, Mayor of Beaverton, Jim Lewis, Councilor from Jacksonville, Sherilyn Lombos, I think she might have had to leave, City Manager from Tualatin, John Oberst, Mayor of Monmouth, and Sandy Toms, Mayor of Boardman. Please give them your thanks. Additionally, those that couldn't be with us tonight are Joe Gall, from the City Manager from Sherwood, Julie Manning, Mayor of Corvallis, Dan Saltzman, a Commissioner from Portland, Tim Slater, Councilor from North Bend, and Steve Forrester, the City Manager from Prineville. Also in our midst is an affiliate president that I want to recognize, and the lights are such I can't see her. Shantai Platt, where are you? Our Oregon Mayors Association president. Over here. She's the mayor of Jervis. Next, we'd like to recognize the planning committee for this year's conference. The content of the conference is planned by you, our members. And this year we had 24 of you, 24 people helping us to develop the content of the concurrent sessions that you've attended over the last 3 days. They really worked hard to ensure that these sessions were relevant, meaningful, timely, and that you had some specific take-homes to take with you back to your cities so that you could share them with your colleagues. So thanks to all of you who worked in that capacity. And this is our opportunity to start planning the 2015 conference. The League is interested in hearing from you, our members, on what you'd like to hear about and learn about at the next conference. Please contact the League if you'd like to be a part of that planning team so that we have a great program when we get together in Bend next year as well. In our audience tonight, we also have a number of past presidents of the League of Oregon Cities, so please stand as I call your names. 2004 President Mayor Phil Houck from the city of Pendleton. Letterbuck. 2006 President Mayor Jim Fairchild, City of Dallas. Actually, I should point out he's Councilor Jim Fairchild. He got tired of being mayor for a while. He was mayor at the time. 2009 President Mayor Shirley Calcoven from the City of Nehalem. And the person, if I choose to blame, I would blame for having me involved in the City of Oregon Cities, but I won't blame you. 2010 President Mayor John McCardle from the City of Independence. Stand up, John, nobody can see you. 2011 President, former Mayor Gary Williams from the City of Cottage Grove. And 2013 President Mayor George Endicott from the City of Redmond. And please join me in thanking Mike McCauley and all of the League's staff who worked really hard to make all of this come together. As I mentioned earlier, we've had 3 outstanding days in Eugene. And I hope that looking back, you've gained valuable insight, valuable thoughts from the concurrent sessions, certainly some entertainment value from the gubernatorial forum, as well as some information. The tours, the workshops, and so forth. We hope that you have something from those that you can take back with you to help your cities move forward. The level and quality simply would not be possible without the support of our sponsors, those who contribute us financially. They've made this outstanding program possible. And I'd like to thank and recognize those organizations that specifically sponsored tonight's dinner: AT&T, Prothman Company, Wedbush Securities, and Pacific Power. On behalf of the League, I would like to thank each of these sponsors for their generous financial support for tonight's banquet. We had a panel of judges who put together these awards for us tonight, the awards for exceptional service. They created the nominees and selected the board winners, and that's always a challenging task, looking at the nominees and seeing who has that extra special quality that needs to be recognized by all of us. Those judges were Brad Nanke, Salem Counselor, Jonathan Belden, Eagle Point Counselor, George Endicott, Mayor of Redmond, Joe Gall, Sherwood City Manager, and Julie Manning, the Mayor of Corvallis. So thank them as well. You'll notice on your table tonight a program that describes tonight's Exceptional Service Awards. Our first award is the Civic Education Award, which recognizes individuals who have been active in promoting local government education in our schools. The selection committee chose to give this year's award to Lycia Farley, a teacher for the Rosemont Ridge Middle School in West Lynn. Ms. Farley exemplifies a civic educator. She has worked closely with the city of West Lynn for the past 3 years to promote understanding of municipal affairs. She has encouraged her Rosemont Ridge Middle School students to enhance their understanding of water and infrastructure issues, of land use planning issues, of affordable housing issues, and specific to West Lynn, redevelopment proposals for the Arch Bridge area in town. Ms. Farley also provided staff assistance to West Lynn's first Youth Leadership Academy, where students participated in a 6-month learning exercise about municipal affairs. Ms. Farley is personable, kind, and dedicated. The city writes about her, "She is a joy to work with and exemplifies an educator who promotes civic education and awareness. Ms. Farley was unable to join us tonight, so Jody Carson, West Lynn Council President, is here to accept the award on her behalf. Jody? And now for the Herman Carley Award, our next Exceptional Service Award, which recognizes a city employee who has provided exceptional contributions to city government. Herman Carley served both as Executive Director for the League of Oregon, Executive Secretary for the League of Oregon Cities, and a Director of the University of Oregon's former Bureau of Government Research and Service from 1933 to 1966. The quality of Oregon City government today is due in large parts to the success of the Bureau and the high standards set by its founders. Matt Winkle, City Manager of Bandon, has been selected to receive this year's Herman Cairley Award. After receiving that spontaneous applause probably tells you something all by itself. After receiving his degree in architecture from the University of Notre Dame, Matt started his civic service with the city of Phoenix, Arizona, moving on to Northern Arizona Council of Governments for a few years. He even ran his own consulting firm until going back into city government in Williams, Arizona, rising from community development director to city manager, where he served for 3 years. Matt was hired by the Bandon City Council in 1994 and has served there for 20 years. The list of endorsements for Matt's nomination is about as big as the people involved in that round of applause. It comes from a broad range of community members, including his own elected officials, city staff, the port, the Historic Museum, the Chamber of Commerce, the Greater Bandon Association, and probably a cast of thousands. The list of achievements under Matt's thoughtful watch include the fact that the city streets are now paved when just 12 years ago, half of them were not. In addition to the community now has sidewalks, walking paths, broadband service, and recently added an electric charging station for electric vehicles. A theater, a remodeled community and senior center, and a library are some of the amenities added during Matt's tenure. Even Bandon City Hall has gone from tired and dated to what one resident calls retro and sharp. Finally, during Matt's time in Bandon, the beloved cheese factory has been restored, a beacon of public and private cooperation. One of Matt's colleagues commented, his strong belief in fiscal responsibility and accountability is almost unmatched in my experience. I would trust Matt with any amount of money and any expense account. He is fiercely loyal to the concept of government officials being responsible for the taxpayer or their monies granted to the city, and has a very open book approach. These comments, without a doubt, are the embodiment of the Cairley Award. It is my pleasure to present Matt Winkle, the Herman Cairley Award. The James C. Richard Memorial Award was created by the LOC Board of Directors in 1980 in memory of former City Councilor in Bay City and Administrative Officer for Tillamook County. The award recognizes exceptional contributions by city officials at the local, state, federal levels in support of the League's Intergovernmental Relations Program. His many years of involvement in intergovernmental affairs serve as a model to others and is the standard by which the nominees are evaluated. This year's winner is Mayor John McCardle of the City of Independence. Stand up and let your public recognize you. John has been mayor of Independence for 14 years, and wonderful things have happened during his leadership. Mayor McCardle always strives to do what is best for Independence, for Polk County, and for Oregon. One of his counselors describes him as one of the wisest and most ethical leaders she knows. He's not just someone who comes up with ideas and expects others to make them happen. He works alongside his friends and his neighbors to turn dreams into realities. John founded the Mid-Willamette Valley Mayors Coalition, enhancing the ability of elected officials to work together effectively. He is on the board of the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments, chairs the Regional Economic Development Partnership Board, is a past president of the Oregon Mayors Association, and serves as well on the LOC board. Here are some of the accomplishments that have been inspired and overseen by and supported by John McArdle. The Downtown Renaissance Project guided a reformation of downtown Independence, already a historic district, into a family-friendly, business-friendly setting. The old downtown had a very poor reputation. The new downtown is the pride of the community. After a 50-year hiatus, John decided Independence needed a festival to celebrate the great new downtown, and was himself the reason why the historic Hop Festival has returned with great success to Independence. John helped oversee the 2020 Visioning Project, which saw 10% of the citizens of Independence turn out to make their voices heard. A comprehensive plan was created, and by 2014, all the projects are done. John is already busy organizing future visioning. With the help of the National Guard and an unexpectedly serendipitous call John made to the Pentagon, Independence planned, built, and opened a 5,000-seat outdoor amphitheater. John calls this jewel the living room of Independence. In a recent unveiling of Independence's successful achievement of the All-American City standing, John clearly demonstrated his philosophy of leadership when he said, "I may get to hold the microphone, but it's all of us together who make the good stuff happen." This is true leadership and reflects the spirit of James C. Richards Memorial Award. And tonight, John McArdle, it is your community and your colleagues who have nominated you to hold the microphone and receive this prestigious award for the work, your spirit, and your commitment to community.
You know, they taught me in mayor school never to pass up an opportunity to talk to a crowd. So I wanted to say how touched I am. There's nothing better than to be recognized by so many wonderful people, your peers, those who work in the trenches, those who work to make their community a better place. I want to thank, you know, as was mentioned, we have great counselors, we have great staff, we have great family members that put up with mayors who are excited about sewers. You know, and I just really want to tell all of you, you know, my favorite quote of all time is from Robert Kennedy, and I leave you with this. And, you know, those of you out there, it's some see things as they are and say why. Those of you out there see things as they could be and say why not. Thank you for this wonderful award.
I have a few closing remarks I want to make to you, but before I do, I want to make sure that I touch the bases that I really need to touch. And that's to thank you for joining us this year to make this conference great. Please fill out the electronic evaluations that will be coming your way so that we can plan an even better conference next year in Bend, and I hope to see you there. When you get a moment after I'm done talking, and shut up, make sure that you take the opportunity to congratulate the award winners tonight. And enjoy some of the dessert buffet as well as the music provided by Don Jansen. So in reading the notes that were the presider's notes presented to me, it's my job now to make some remarks to tell you all about the wonderful accomplishments of the LOC over the last year since you were here for the last conference. Well, as you know, we solved all of your problems. We guaranteed a continuous flow of money from state and federal coffers into your cities. We solved all of your aging infrastructure needs. We convinced politicians at the state and federal level to leave you alone and let you do your job. We've secured all the funding you need to maintain your roads and streets. We've sorted out all of the issues surrounding medical marijuana. And we straightened out Oregon's goofy tax structure. So the only thing that is left for us to do is sing several verses of Kumbaya and roast some marshmallows. Wednesday at the LOC board meeting, your incoming President Mayor Truax, using precise legal terminology, summed that kind of a statement up. That's a crock. We probably could have done all those things, but the reality is we needed to save a few things for Pete to address. So he's got his job cut out for him. The reality is this: government in this country is by design slow-moving, cumbersome, tedious. It's not allowed to be fast. We don't want it to be fast. If government were nimble, the governed would not be able to control it. And that was the very concept that created this country. So we'll be dealing with the same issues that I just ran through that really aren't solved. We've made progress on them, but they're not solved. We'll be going through those in the next year when Pete is the president. We'll be going through them the year after that when Brad Nanke is the president, and we will probably be doing them when Denny is the president the year after that. So if they ever tell you they didn't know what they were getting into, don't believe them. We have made progress. We've worked with the state electeds to champion your legislative priorities. We've slayed a number of bad legislative dragons. We have re-slayed a number of bad legislative zombies that keep coming back to life. We have shared your collective voice in a number of legal proceedings that will enable your ability to run your communities better: water rights issues, franchise issues, preemption issues. We've met with all of the members of the Oregon congressional delegation, and we've met with the governor repeatedly to remind them that the vast majority of their constituents are our constituents. We just finished a round of City Hall Week meetings wherein you had the chance to sit down with those state elected officials and to tell them about the things that concern you and that concern all of us. This is really an endless journey. This is not a destination. It's not a place where you can, an LOC president can stand up at the conference at the end of the year and slap the dust off his hands and say, okay, we did that, we're done. Sorry, that doesn't work that way. It's all about the trip. It's all about seeking the safe harbor of knowledgeable and skilled governments, city staff, elected officials. It's all about steering away from the shoals and the reefs of perhaps well-intended but under-informed legislators, lawyers, senators, congressmen, ill-conceived public policy. I once read that it is impossible to make anything foolproof because fools are so ingenious. And that, in fact, is the world that we live in. The trip that we are on together began 89 years ago with the formation of the LOC, and it continues. Our work continues. Your work continues. Recently, with your input, we put together our top legislative priorities, and we've talked about them quite a bit this last several days. Each of these represents an important step toward our journey. We need to pay attention to these. I don't want to minimize them. But I do want to stress something a little different. What I want to stress is that many of the problems that we're trying to fix today are the result of short-sightedness. Well-intentioned short-sightedness, but myopic nonetheless, and I think of our tax situation as a great example of that. Somebody probably, like us, thought it was a really good idea at the time, and many people probably slapped their hands together and knocked the dust off and said, we're done with that. Well, we're not done with that. We're only beginning with that. Several years ago, many years ago, 50-plus years ago, there was a lot of infrastructure being put in cities. A lot of it was being done with the help of federal funds. And water lines went in, and sewer lines went in, and power plants went in, and streets got paved, and all kinds of things happened that was really good. And people probably stood around, patted themselves on the back, slapped the dust off their hands, and said, we're done with that. But we at the city level know that that infrastructure is following the second law of thermodynamics, which says systems tend to go from a state of greater organization to a state of lesser organization, aka decay. So we have to fix that. Probably a little thinking ahead could have solved that problem. Back in the day, we could have set some money aside for these things if we'd been thinking far enough. These things all come under the unfortunate rubric of, well, it seemed like a good idea at the time. And that's the one thing that city councilors and mayors don't want to be remembered as having their famous last words be. Those are the functional equivalent in a redneck society of, watch my beer, hold my beer and watch this. Now, people who are here, you and me, we're faced with dealing with these issues. And that means that if we're not careful, we are going to create the next set of problems for somebody else to straighten out. The challenge that I want to give to you is to see the picture. I've seen the spark of that kind of vision here this week. I was heartened by Mayor Percy's recognition of the fact that their economic issues aren't contained within Eugene, but stretch at least as far as Mount Hood and virtually to California in the other direction. So she's looking beyond a small place. That's heartening. I'm also encouraged by the regional solutions concept of looking beyond parochial problems and putting pieces together that make a little more sense for a bigger picture fix. I'm grateful that Mayor Calcoven and Mayor Endicott were involved in the resiliency effort, getting cities involved in a look forward to see what might be coming our way and how we might be prepared for that when the Cascadia subduction zone event takes place. Those things are important, and those are good big picture steps, but I'm talking even bigger than that. My challenge is to look way down the road, that you be fearless in the way that Dave Frohnmeyer talked about yesterday, unafraid to look ahead, unafraid of new possibilities, undaunted of expanding your world beyond City Hall, beyond city limits, beyond county lines, just beyond. There's a book written by an author named Stuart Brand, and the book is called The Clock of the Long Now. Mr. Brand's premise is that if we are going to solve the problems of the planet, of our existence, that we need to have a much bigger look at what's going on around us. We need to think in longer time frames. And he suggests that really what's going on now is we are thinking in shorter time frames. We have instantaneous gratification for the information we need. We are having products delivered to us from all over the world at any time of the year. You can go down to the store and you can buy a nectarine that's going to be ripe and ready to eat right now. He suggests there used to be a time when we used to have to think at least seasonally. We used to have to think in annual cycles. So we would think longer, so we would be ready to deal with those problems coming our way. We'd plant the seeds, we'd nurture them, we'd harvest them, we'd store them, then we'd start the cycle all over again. But now we think in much shorter time frames. I know you think in somewhat longer time frames because you have to. It's the job that you have taken on. He illustrates this concept in describing a party that he went to. He says that we need to think longer and we need to think bigger. We are currently thinking of a short now and a very small here. So when we say here, we may mean our city. People live in houses now that are generally air-conditioned and heated, so they don't go out and sit on the veranda when it gets hot in the summertime. They don't talk to their neighbors. They've got television and air conditioning, and they get locked inside. So their ability to work with their neighbors is much less than it used to be. Their here is very small. Their now is very small. He went to this party, and to get to this party, he drove down city streets. He drove past buildings that were falling down. He drove past derelict automobiles that were up on blocks. He drove past people who needed help in mental illness cases that were along the streets and homeless. He was a little bit worried about leaving his car on the street, and he did. And he went up to the steps of this building, which was a rather large and well-maintained building, with an iron gate in the front of it. He rang the bell. He was allowed admittance. He walked through a big oak door and into a place that had great chandeliers with people sipping champagne and wearing finery and talking with each other about how things were going in their lives. He asked the woman who was giving the party, "How do you like living here?" And she said, "I love it here. This is the best place I have ever lived." And he thought, she's talking about inside that gate. Her here is only inside the four walls of that building. She's not talking about the street she lives on. She's not talking about the neighborhood she lives on. She's not talking about the city or the state or the country she lives on, and certainly is not talking about the planet she lives on. Her thinking is very small and her here and now is constrained. He suggests that we should create an actual physical clock that measures time in 1,000-year periods, just to make us think bigger and longer. The Iroquois nation had the concept of the seventh generation. They thought any decisions of any import at all should consider the generations 7 generations back and 7 generations into the future. I think we should do that as well. I used to teach a class at a law enforcement academy called Values, Principles, and Ethics. And what I used as my major primer for that particular course was a little book written by a man named Robert Fulghum called Everything I Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. I think it's a good primer for city government. I think it's a good primer for state, federal government. I think it's a good planetary premise. Here are the 16 things he came up with. He talked about a number of things to set up the essay, but these are the things that he learned in kindergarten that ought to be our list of go-to things to do when we have a decision to make. Share everything. Play fair. Don't hit people. Put things back where you found them. Clean up your own mess. Don't take things that aren't yours. Say you're sorry if you hurt somebody. Wash your hands before you eat. Flush. Warm cookies and cold milk are good for you. Live a balanced life. Learn some and drink some and draw some and paint some and sing and dance and play and work every day some. Take a nap every afternoon. And when you go out into the world, watch out for traffic, hold hands, and stick together. Be aware of wonder. Remember the little seed in the styrofoam cup. The roots go down and the plant goes up, and nobody knows how or why. But we are all like that. Goldfish and hamsters and white mice and even the little seed in the styrofoam cup, they all die. So do we. And then remember Dick and Jane. The books that you read in those days. Remember the first word that you learned, the biggest word. Look. There's more to Fulgham's piece than that, of course. But he reminds me of some comments that were made by David Frohnmeyer again yesterday. He reminds me of what he called passionate curiosity. That's what that look word means. It's your chance to open your eyes to the possibilities, to the opportunities to serve your constituents, to those out to the 7th generation, to fix, to create. Now, I know that when you're up to your ass in alligators, it's hard to remember that you came to drain the swamp. I know that you have challenging constituents. I know that you have challenging and immediate problems. I know that it's hard to remember what you're there for from time to time because of all that. But here's what I want you to do. Take in the swamp and then look beyond it to the forest, to the mountains, to the trees, to the stars. My challenge to you here is to think a very big here and a very long now. 89 years from today, the journey will still be ongoing. If we can think big enough, if we can think long enough, the future you and me on the 188th conference of the League of Oregon Cities will have easier problems to solve. It has been my honor to serve you as president. Thank you.